What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Kickoff Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Oh, yeah. Will Brinson here, the only one dressed up. That's fine. You guys are not Halloween people. I get it. Alex Selznick, RJ White, Mackenzie Brooks, and Danny Brasco. What's going on? How are we doing?
Well, I actually came as a Yankee fan, which is about the scariest thing you could be right now. So
you look way too happy to be a Yankees fan, buddy.
I'm on brand. I'm on costume. Proppy. I know maybe the costume isn't there, but did I see pre-show your cornrows, Proppy? Are you evolved Proppy right now with the rose?
I don't have cornrows, but I would like to have French braids, which I will potentially debut tomorrow, aka Proppy long stockings with the braids. But great to see everybody. Happy Halloween. Next to Thanksgiving, this is my favorite holiday. Love seeing all the creativity in the costumes. Will, fantastic job. I'm curious what people are dressed up in the chat. So those of you watching, let us know if you are decked out in some Halloween garb. Would love to hear what costumes you guys are rocking.
The chat is very surprised that RJ didn't dress up for Halloween.
Well, I got a text about Sunday. Said, "Hey, if we wear costumes, are you in? Like, will you do it?" I was like, "Brother, I got nothing around here that looks like a costume."
Okay, all right. Well, you got a text on Sunday or about Sunday?
I don't know, around the weekend sometime.
No, on Sunday. No, Jake's been trying to cook up RJ putting on a costume for some time here. He was looking.
So Jack Caporto, one of the producers, texted me about the 4 p.m. SportsLine, or the SportsLine, the Spotlight show that we did. Like Ken, you were dressed up. Jacqueline dressed up as Pete Prisco. Pete Prisco dressed up as like a concussion-riddled old football player. Did you hear what Hassel said about him? He goes, he points at Jacqueline. He goes, "That's what Pete Prisco will look like after 5 more years of Ozempic." Like live on television. I mean, what a savage move. Jack said costumes are encouraged. So I took that as, I should have a costume for every show I do throughout the day. And once I got into costume, I wasn't going to take it off. So
I would like to see if the chat can correctly identify your costume, Will. So if you're watching and you think you know what Will is, please answer in the chat. I'm curious, how many of you can correctly guess Will's costume.
I like you think that that's a costume, and he didn't just show up late. Couldn't change.
I mean, this is what I wore to the Sturgill concert on Monday when I ducked out of the show. All right, we have a kind of a great game, kind of a weird game, kind of a fun game. Also, Danny, what's up? You did chime in. Hey,
I'm sitting sulking in I'm trying to like tilt.
All right, you're a Yankees fan.
Away from my Yankee memorabilia. It's just so embarrassing. So yeah, I'm still licking the wounds, but I'm here. Let's talk football. Let's do it.
Yeah, Jeff has nailed it. I am the guy who sold you pot in high school. The Macho Man, thank you. Yes, it is Macho Man. Get you a fake tan and sweating. I mean, I'm sweating a little bit, but we'll work on the fake tan. Anyway, by the Yankees, you guys know Nick Costos, right? I don't like the Yankees, as I've made abundantly clear. I have been peppering Costos all day with every Yankees lost meme I can find. And he's taking it in stride pretty well, but man, tough. 5-0. Rizzo, Cole, the whole thing. Anyway, we'll talk football. Let's talk about the Jets. How about the Jets? We'll talk about the Jets and the Texans. The Jets, surprisingly, I think to a lot of people, are a favorite here. And I say surprisingly because the spread opened originally, I believe, and RJ, correct me if I'm wrong, but Houston was like a -1 here. It drifted across pretty early in the week. And now you have the Jets at -2.5. And I don't want to say square better, but the public is all over the Texans in this one for good reason. The Texans feel like a better team. They are better coached. They have a better quarterback. They have a lot of injuries at wide receiver. But, I mean, RJ, can you justify taking the Jets at -2.5? Total, by the way, 43.
At 2.5, no, I think the number is too high. We got it at +1.5 at the beginning of the week. Monday morning, it was +1.5. And then, like you said, it steamed all the way through the 0 to 1.5 on the other side most of the week. Then it got up to 2. Now it's up to 2.5. And you can understand the thinking. Houston down their top 2 receivers. So, it's tough to go in and bet them when their offense hasn't looked good anyway. And people are expecting this Jets team is going to have to turn it around at some point. There's too much talent for this team to be 2-6. And I mean, you give them a good, solid kicker, they might be 5-3. So it's not like they're terrible. They're just losing close games because their kicker is awful. So I think that's kind of an impetus for this move here. For me, I'm playing the money line at -140 for this broadcast. The Houston pass defense has been good all year, but they've allowed 20+ in all but one game, ranked 30th in red zone success rate. So it's the kind of formula where you think the Jets offense can finally get on track. We talked on the earlier show, the 2 p.m. show, that I think the best way to play this is Texans in a teaser with something on Sunday, or with the Chiefs if you can get 8.5 down to 2.5. But just for this game, I think money line is fine. I think if you want to play that scenario where the Jets win, I like playing the halftime and full-time double result. So I think if the Jets lead at halftime and Houston has to abandon the run in the second half at all, then it's over, because they don't have the guys to throw to. So you get +140 if you play a halftime, full-time. So if you're already leaning to the Jets win and it's getting too pricey for you, I think that's the way you play the game.
I think it's a great call because, and I mean, my props, I had the Jets personally, and -1.5. I would agree with RJ. I wouldn't dilly-dally around with that spread. I would just lay the -140 if you like the Jets and go with the money line route. I am curious how Bobby Slowick would play this if it was a negative game script for the Texans. In other words, would he crank up C.J. Stroud's pass rate and go away from running the ball with Joe Mixon? I don't know, though, RJ, if the Jets are just going to run away with this. And Danny, this kind of dovetails into your signature signature side here, or on the total. Like, I mean, if the Jets got up, I mean, what's the biggest the Jets are going to get up here? Like 17-0, and CJ Stroud just throws it like a bunch, and Dalton Schultz eats. I think under, which primetime under, probably a good look, right?
Yeah, it's got to be here. I feel like the side in terms of the total. And the primetime unders, they were on fire to start the year. But recently we've seen them, whether it's been sort of variance due to defensive touchdowns or special teams. A lot of the public sides, public overs have gone over recently in primetime. So I'm going to stick with them anyway. And I think this is a spot worthwhile because on the short week, RJ talked about Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, both out, right? I mean, the Texans have already struggled on early downs. They find themselves in 3rd and long often. And the Jets, they were banged up a little bit in the secondary, but it looks like DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, both healthy again. So expect their secondary to play a little bit better. They are without Ashton Davis and Tony Adams at the safety position. So they're going to have to play sort of a bend, don't break style, I think. But I think they limit CJ Stroud tonight, and they have some success. Also on the Jets side, haven't been able to get out of their own way. I think they try to play like maybe a safer playbook, hand the ball off to Breece Hall. And, they were missing Elijah Vera Tucker on the offensive line as well. Aaron Rodgers has already been under a lot of duress, as has CJ Stroud. So both quarterbacks been under pressure. I think Aaron Rodgers going to look to stay safe tonight. And I think those factors will contribute to heavy run game and under game script, most likely, with two struggling offenses.
Fluffhead, very disappointed with you guys. Only one costume. I actually wore this exact costume, Fluffhead, to a Fish concert on Halloween. So don't worry about it, buddy.
And Brinson, I just wanted to mention one thing. Waited all day long to bet this till it hit the key number of 43. I was waiting. So now that it hit 43, I would grab it there. It's a big difference between 42.5 and 43. If you get a score type of 23-20, right? You want that push condition. So grab it there at 43, guys.
Proppy, you look like you want to pop in and say something, whether it's game script or props related or decider total. Go ahead.
Always want to pop in and say something, Brinson. But I strongly agree with both Danny and RJ here regarding quite a few topics. First and foremost, I really think that we have a case of a team underachieving, obviously, with the Jets, a few field goals away from being 5-3, as RJ pointed out. I think for as unlucky as they have been, Houston has run very fortunate, and they've played above expectations, obviously. And I think they're a natural regression candidate, despite, not having the wide receiver healthy. So I think this is a tough spot for Houston. We know C.J. Stroud has struggled in the elements, playing outdoors, had the worst game of his career against this same Jets defense as well. I believe he had Nico Collins for that game too. So I think it's a tough spot for the passing offense. The Jets have been a significant run funnel, partially because of the strength of their pass defense, which has been good, not as good as advertised as people thought coming into the season. They've been a bit susceptible there. But yeah, the defense got off to a good start. It's pretty much cratered a bit over the last 3 or 4 weeks, particularly the pass defense, actually, which is interesting. But I do think getting DJ Reed back certainly helps. Missing linebacker CJ Mosley, as well as the 2 safeties that Danny mentioned, though, is a big loss to this Jets defense. But then looking at Houston's defense has played better as the season has progressed. They've been a very good pass defense. They actually have much better marks as far as the advanced metrics are concerned than the Jets' vaunted pass defense. Top 5 in EPA allowed per dropback. 4th in defensive success rating as well. The run defense, though, has been a bit vulnerable. They've also given up a lot of big plays. So they have some bend but don't break mentality. So I think this Jets team will focus on moving the football on the ground via Breece Hall. Breece Hall's really come on strong recently. That had to do, obviously, in my opinion, with Robert Saleh stepping down, Jeff Ulbrich taking over the reins as the offensive play caller there. But yeah, over the last 3 games, Breece Hall averaging over 5 yards a carry, which certainly is a good sign for him. He's a big play waiting to happen, still very explosive option. So I do think the Jets will be able to move the football against Houston. And then I think Houston will look to attack the Jets on the ground as well with a big dose of Joe Mixon, who has had some monster workloads thus far.
Monster workloads.
Monster workloads. Number 1 fantasy running back in points per game as well, which is worth pointing out. So, yeah, I think this is a game where we're going to see both running backs heavily featured. So, yeah, it's an interesting matchup, but I'm personally backing the Jets here as well as the guys. So I just think it's a good – and Mackenzie. I just think it's a good spot to back the Jets, whose backs are against the wall. If they don't win here, I mean, I think it's almost, less than 1% they make the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, last week's loss against the Patriots is inexplicably bad. By the way, I can't get it. I feel like these stupid fake hair looks like Arby's curly fries. How do I deal with
Welcome to my world, Brinson. That's why I always have my hair.
Yeah, that's why I keep it short and tight. Halloween fish shows are fire. MSG fish shows the best. I saw Baker's Dozen there, Rick. Fish shows unbelievable. More importantly, Kins, your pick against the spread. What does the model think against the spread and on the total?
I'd say for starters, this is just like a disgusting game and spread and very confusing. And I feel like this is one of those situations where you just ride with Vegas here and trust that there's a reason this team is favored by 2.5 points here. So I'm up with you guys. I think that the money line is probably the better play here. We do have them projected to win by 2 points here. And again, we've talked about it. I don't want to just repeat ourselves, but Houston just hasn't looked great in general, and then you take out their weapons as well. If you are going to beat this Jets team, it is going to be on the ground, like you guys said, with Joe Mixon. So it should be interesting to see here. I have to imagine something gets going here with Devontae Adams, just based off history. It just feels like it's about time for something big for him. So with you guys on the Jets, this is a very fitting game for Halloween. Just feel like the Jets are absolute nightmare fuel. So this all checks out. I will say, over on my TikTok, where I've been explaining football in general to the Swifties, to just girls in general, explaining the drama behind the Jets and the past 2 seasons has done numbers. People are invested in this story and the lore and the diva that Aaron Rodgers is. So shout out Aaron Rodgers for helping me with the TikTok numbers, but it's been an interesting ride for this team.
What do we think Aaron Rodgers is dressing as on Halloween?
Aaron Rodgers. He looks.
I wish he would dress as a competent NFL quarterback. That'd be nice if you back the Jets. I mean,
he goes out in that Jets uniform and looks like he is dressed as Aaron Rodgers.
And the Jets in a Halloween game, like, how do you not like the under? It's going to get spooky out there, guys.
I think
actually Aaron Rodgers should dress as a Green Bay Packer. Grow up and play well, Aaron.
Whether it was advertent or inadvertent, I think Nick Cage from Con Air is Aaron Rodgers' best look that I've seen.
That would be that's money.
That is pretty good. There's nothing better than like the Nick Cage gif where he's like he say actually I love Nick Cage too. This by the way, this wig could also be like a Kenny Powers wig. And
definitely a Kenny Powers, Danny McBride.
Yeah. I almost pivoted to Kenny Powers for the night show, but then
when I was sad about the Yankees losing, I watched Eastbound and Down blooper reels, and I was pouring tears and immediately felt better. So yeah, that's great.
I'm such a big Danny McBride fan. I think he's the funniest.
Danny McBride is incredible. Yeah, that whole show was filmed in North Carolina. So yes, I am down with that. I think we had one chat question about the side or total. I don't think I put this up yet. Jeffrey asks, Jets moneyline parlay with their team total over 20.5 plus 124. RJ, I mean, I think that's kind of similar to the halftime full-time thing in the sense that, I mean, obviously the Jets have to win. You think they got to get to 21 points to win this game, right?
Maybe. I mean, 2017 seems like a pretty good game too. And I don't know if you want to be sweating, like get to 20 and they need to kick that extra point to get you over. And what their kicker was that something's going to go awry on Halloween.
Right.
So
Line, obviously.
Yeah. And I would also say they've scored 20 or less in 5 of 8 games this year, and their season high is 24. So it's sketchy.
They're like the Browns without, having given a fully guaranteed contract and all the off-field stuff for Deshaun Watson. Like, because they were 4-3. They're 4-3 this time last year with Zach Wilson and no Aaron Rodgers for 4 snaps. They were a better team last year. It's ridiculous. Get it together, A-Rod. Okay. If you're watching on X, come join the chat on YouTube. Let's look at our inactives for this game. Alan Lazard placed on IR today, so he's going to miss at least 4 games. We also have Elijah Vera Tucker out for this game. Ashton Davis. I'm trying to read this through these sunglasses. Morgan Moses. That says questionable. RJ, I know you're on top of this. Is there anything I really can't read? Anybody we need to know other than what we expected? Dameon Pierce out as a backup for the Texans, of course. Jimmy Ward hurts your secondary. Anything shock or surprise you in terms of the inactives?
Yeah, nothing shocking. I mean, we talked about the impact of the defensive guys for the Jets. Mosley's a big one. The 2 safeties. You still don't have Vera Tucker at guard. The good thing for them is it looks like I believe they have both tackles in. And that's been a major issue for them is protecting Aaron Rodgers on the edges. So if they're able to make it through the game, Morgan Moses, if he's able to make it through the game, I think that's a big plus. On the Houston side, Al Shahir, you would have loved to have him back. He's been awesome when he plays. So that could be a place where the Texans the Jets can exploit the Texans defense.
All right, let's get to prop bets. And if you have questions about a specific prop bet, drop it in the chat. We got a bunch starred. We will star yours. We will answer your question as best that we can. Proppy. Oh my God, Proppy. I just saw your favorite prop bet. I'm kind of surprised by it, honestly.
I am, yeah. It's going to be fading Dalton Schultz, who I guess you like tonight, Brinson, but I'm going under 41.5, or I got 40.5 receiving yards for the tight end. I just first and foremost think this is a big number for Dalton Schultz, who's been a low usage role player in this Texans offense. He's eclipsed 40 yards one time, albeit I do recognize it was last week, sans Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. But I think this is a difficult matchup for a variety of reasons. We've talked about this Jets pass defense being maybe not as good as advertised, but still a top 10 unit. Also, he's going to see a lot of Quincy Williams, linebacker of the Jets, one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL. The Jets have been very stingy against opposing tight ends all season long, giving up the 7th fewest yards per game, which is 42 yards to the position on the season. Also, I mentioned this earlier when breaking down the game, the Jets are a significant run funnel, partly because of the strength of the pass defense. Teams opt to run, and they're just a lot more vulnerable on the ground. And we've seen them lean heavily, the Texans offense, on Joe Mixon. So I don't know how many dropbacks there's going to be for C.J. Stroud in a neutral game environment. If we look at his passing yards, it's only 220 or 218, I believe. So 40 is a pretty significant. What is it, Mackenzie?
218.5.
218.5. So, yeah, 40 yards is a pretty significant chunk when we're looking at a projected yardage total of 219 yards for C.J. Stroud. So I just think there's a lot going against Dalton Schultz, who really doesn't have any yards after the catch ability at this stage of his career, or really ever. He just kind of falls down after he makes the reception. So going to go under 40 and a half yards for Dalton Schultz.
By the way, this is just objectively funny from Jeff Stenberg, who is very funny in the chat. I'm handing out Brussels sprouts and Ferrero Rocher wrappers. Enjoy your treats, kiddo. Someone else asked if they're at least honey glazed. Like, nope, raw. Can you imagine thinking you're opening up like a delicious?
I love a Ferrero Rocher too.
Brinson, if you can believe it, I actually can. My birthday is on April Fool's Day, and my family once made me a cupcake that had frosting and spinach and like broccoli inside of it. So I have bit into a delicious vegetable dessert of the sort. So Jeff, very creative. Gotta love it.
That's as close as I came to dropping an F-bomb on the stream. Like, that's effed up. Like,
yeah, I'll never forget my aunt for that. I'll never forget.
I know. I'd be furious. I've got several props here, and look, I mean, I guess like it's weird because like I'm on the Jets, but I don't think the Jets will pull away to a point that they have some lead that the Texans just abandon their game plan and start to chunk it around. So I guess when I say like I think Dalton Schultz gets his, at least from a receptions perspective, maybe not receiving yards probably, but man, Joe Mixon is set up for perfection here. If you look at like Joe Mixon has, I think it's 5 games. He has 1 game of those where he got 2 games of those where he got less than like 23 carries. 1, he got hurt against the Bears. The other that he had 13 carries for 100+ yards. The other 3, he's getting 25 carries and he's eating and he's running and he's like, they traded for Joe Mixon, gave him some money, and they're like, this dude's our workhorse. And he is. He's their new Devin Singletary, and he's better than Devin Singletary. And he's just going to go over 100 yards, in my opinion. I think 82.5 it's a high number, but as probably noted, this is a run funnel for the Jets. They have 2 really good the joke is like people were like not calling Sauce because he's not playing well enough, but they have Sauce and DJ Reed outside. If you want to beat the Jets, you pound the ball. The Texans have a good offensive line. To me, this is clear cut. So I'm going Mixon over 82.5 rushing yards. I'll lay the juice with Mixon anytime touchdown. And I gave it out on Spotlight earlier. I think you can go Mixon anytime touchdown, parlayed with Mixon 100 rushing yards. It's plus 250. I like that. I like that from a parlay perspective. And I took Dalton Schultz over receptions. So we can still get there probably. I think it's like 3.5.
Sounds like you really like the Jets. Sounds like you really like the Jets with all this offensive production from Houston.
Dude, it's going to be just 2017. You can get there with all this. Like, it doesn't have to be a ton of scoring, a bunch of running, a bunch of Brees Hall catches, a bunch of whatever. Like, it's fine.
Parlay all that with the over then.
No, I'm not on the over. I'm not touching the over with these 2 teams. They might run it on first down every single time. I agree with you. My props contradict my game pick, but the line stinks. The line stinks, RJ.
I do want to point out, I think this is the only running back, maybe besides Derrick Henry, I've seen this season that's had his rushing attempts line over 20. His Joe Mixon's rushing attempts is 20.5. Just speaking to that usage that Joe Mixon has had when he has been on the field, he has certainly been a workhorse for the Texans.
And look, I'm taking the Jets, but let's not rule out the idea that the Texans are a much better football team, even without Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. And they just curb stomp the Jets, who aren't very good, pound the ball with Joe Mixon, and he ends up with getting 25 carries for 150 yards. If you're talking about somebody in the chat asked about ladder plays, if you're going to ladder something, ladder Joe Mixon rushing yards. Texans get a lead. That dude is going to eat all day long. Danny, what do you have from a prop perspective?
I think this plays right into the game script. If we're running the ball and drives end up stalling with 2 offenses that have struggled here and there, then a big advantage that the Texans do have in this game is on special teams. Kaimi Fairbairn might be a key player in this one. I'm taking him to go over 1.5 field goals. It's kind of juiced. I was going to play the over 7.5 kicking points, but that implies that I need to get potentially a 3rd field goal or 2 touchdowns from the Texans to get the extra points. And I'd rather just pay the juice and get the 2 field goals. I think that he's going to be involved. He's got a leg. He's been one of the higher scoring kickers in the league. And like I said, I think the game script is just going to lead right here. The points are going to be at a premium, in my opinion. I'm playing the under, so that should lead to some field goal opportunities from Kaimi Fairbarn. I think he sinks a couple for us.
All right, RJ, what about you?
Well, you can go to the comments section and throw up the one from Brandon from the beginning of the stream, because he and I are completely aligned on this one. He asked a question about my prop, and that's Tyler Conklin under 24.5 receiving yards at -120. Now, Houston's the number one team in the league against tight ends. They've given up just 21 yards per game and only 21 total receptions in 8 games. And I think the Jets offense should continue to get Devontae Adams more involved and rely on those 2 receivers in this matchup. And then I think somebody's going to bring this up with their first touchdown prop in a little bit. But this is the last chance to showcase Mike Williams for a trade. If you want to get something from Mike Williams, you got to get him involved here. So if you're getting all 3 of those guys involved, I think Conklin's probably going to have one of these games like he had before this past week, where he had a 7-yard game and a 10-yard game. It's going to be one of those type of games for Tyler Conklin in the toughest matchup for tight ends in the league.
All right, Kens, what is I was going to ask you if you know what Five Nights at Freddy's is. My son is dressed as Golden Freddy for Halloween. Does anybody know what Five Nights at Freddy's is? Nobody?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody?
I know what it is. I haven't watched it, though.
Okay, boomers. Kids, what is the model like from a prop perspective?
All right, we got 2 props tonight. First one, we are fading Tank Dell here. This line is starting to steam down a lot, opened up around 59.5, now down to 56.5 in some spots. So good to get 57.5 at BetMGM. We have him projected for 53, and I think this is a little bit of an overreaction to Collins being out and Diggs being out. But again, being wide receiver 1 against this Jets offense means you draw Sauce Gardner, and that is not necessarily an awesome place to be. And like we've been saying earlier, the game plan should be against this Jets team to win on the ground. There's no need to be trying to win this game by targeting Tank Dell 20 million times. So I just don't think that should be the game plan. I don't think it will be the game plan. And even if they do want to target him a heavy amount, he can still have a productive game and stay under 60 receiving yards. I just think with Sauce Gardner there with him, it's just hard to imagine he, cracks over 55. Then we're going to go Robert Woods here. Now you're looking at basically a gamble on the quote unquote other guys here. Like you look at the amount of the line for receptions for Tank Dell and for Schultz and the reception line for Joe Mixon. And then you look at CJ Stroud's pass completion line. Like the math tells us we have about 8 floating receptions between where CJ Stroud's pass completions end and where the receptions for all the other guys are. I think a lot of them will end up going to Robert Woods. I think a lot of them are around the same line here. I know people were talking about some of the other guys too, Xavier Hutchinson, but I just think this is a proven starter. And he's had, 12% of the team's receptions over a large 35-game sample size. So I think he'll be the comfortable person for him. We're really just looking for 2, and we have him projected for 3.5.
Proppy, I'm curious I think I like the Bobby Trees. My look could be Bobby Trees. But I think I'm a little I think it's up in the air a little bit, whether it's Xavier Hutchinson, whether it's Robert Woods, whether it's John Mechie. I don't know. I think it's hard to get a sense of what they're going to do. I think that with the model here that Ken threw up is maybe Bobby Slowick trusts Robert Woods as a run blocker and a veteran and puts him out there on the field. Do you get any sense of who the Texans will run out here as kind of the number 2?
Yeah, really tough to say. I would agree where these targets are going to be distributed or funneled to. Even Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz don't seem like they have really high floors, especially when you consider just CJ Stroud. Again, just pointing to the fact that his yardage total, this is a guy who led the NFL in passing yards last season, is sub 220 in this matchup. So, yeah, if I were to bank on someone, it would certainly be Robert Woods, just considering how long he's been in the offense. He's a veteran. He's been productive throughout his career, reliable hands, reliable targets. So if there were anyone that I would look to for him outside of Tank Dell or Dalton Schultz or Joe Mixon in the passing game, it would be Robert Woods.
Yeah, and I think too, if the Texans get a lead and you have a book that offers live player props, Robert, not saying they're going to throw a bunch if they have a lead, But Robert Woods is going to be the guy out there for the run blocking because he's a very good run blocker. They'll be running Joe Mixon. If they get in a third down situations, they'll be Robert Woods is out there. He might catch a few passes, and you could get some live props there. All right, we got a bunch
the Ezekiel Elliott of wide receivers at this stage of his career. Very good in pass protection.
Yeah, I like that comp. All right, we got a ton of questions related to props. Kens, do you have any field goal props?
I love any primetime props. I know Danny mentioned one. I love that too. Danny's props specifically, but again, just these primetime typically unders lead to a lot of field goals as well. But I just feel like all year field goal props have really been a good place to be. I'll never tell anyone not one.
RJ already answered this one. Tyler Conklin under 24.5 receiving. Bang it. Urban Sidewalk asks, what do y'all think about John Mechie III over 25 receiving yards plus 140? And I will throw this up as well because Jeff asked Mechie 4 receptions 8-1. Of those two, I think Mechie 4 receptions 8-1. I mean, I think he's more of a deep shot guy, but
it seems like the shot's taking more on the Mechie side than the Woods side. I don't know how many of these sides you can take. But there's
you got to kind of take a stance.
3 guys you got to pick between.
Yeah.
And the book, BetMGM has Xavier Hutchinson at plus 1,200 for first touchdown and those other guys at plus 2,000. So they're saying Hutchinson's going to be more involved. I think we just don't know. Everybody was on Bub Means 2 Thursdays ago. Yeah. And he finished, fifth in targets? He finished 5th in targets, and Cedric Tillman led the team in receiving or something. It's just like you never know.
It is,
I think from like a prop perspective and a DFS perspective, you sort of have to just take a hard stance, and it needs to be game script dependent. Like if the Texans are down and it's going to be Breece Hall running the ball a bunch, then it's probably Mechie or Hutchinson, and they're throwing to him. Yeah, probably.
Last week after Stephon Diggs was injured, Xavier Hutchinson 62% of the snaps, Robert Woods 34%, and Mechie 28%. So,
okay.
And that's in the line of fire when you have to adjust on the fly. This is planning for a few days.
Sure, I'm just giving you a glimpse of,
I think the Texans think they can win this game by running the ball with Joe Mixon, and that's Robert Woods as their number 2 wide receiver, in my opinion. And JC asked Bob Woods over 1.5 receptions. You saw that from the model. Anyone? Okay, this is a new one for the show.
How about 1.5 pancake blocks?
Ooh, I like that. Anybody like any punt within the 5-yard line?
Ooh,
MGM has it. Look, 2-1 is not enough because you were literally asking like several. And I say this as an old man. Several dressed like Macho Man. Several old men to reliably spot the football where it goes out of bounds, sometimes in the air over like a sideline 40 feet above their head. So I would need 5-1 before I would.
Well, special teams can down it for him right there, and definitely, I want better odds. But a coffin a coffin corner on Halloween feels right. So C Hill, I like it, man.
You find a boost. I like the bet a lot. I just wish it was like better odds. The fact that it's 2-1 makes me think we're going to see that tonight.
Yes,
Breece over rush attempts from Arjun. It's all. That one's so game script dependent.
If I'm backing Breece, I'm looking to back Breece. Either his ability to rip off explosive plays, so his longest rush or his longest reception.
Or pass catching ability.
Yes. Or his pass. He leads all running backs in receiving yards, second in receptions. It also insulates him from game script as well. Also, he's such a better receiver than Braylon is at this stage of their respective careers. So you actually if you're backing Breece Hall, you almost want the Jets to be trailing because he's going to play.
Well, but if you're backing his rush attempts, you want the Jets to be leading, I think.
Yes, no, I'm just saying in general. You would want them to be trailing just because of his ability to impact the game and dominate passing down. So if I'm looking to back Breece Hall, personally, I'm backing him, whether it be his longest rush, longest reception, or his combination line.
Yeah, I was going to mention actually a prop I was going to put out. Sorry to interrupt, Brinson, right before. I didn't get it on SportsLine in time, but I like the Breece Hall receiving yards, especially in a game script where you have an injured offensive lineman and you want to get the quick hitter stuff. Aaron Rodgers has been taking a lot of damage. He's probably sick of it. I imagine that, he's going to start checking down. He's going to start using Breece in the pass game more. He only got one catch for 9 yards last week with 3 receptions. So he's got a super low total of 29.5 receiving yards. The week prior, he had 5 receptions for 103 yards. So we know Brees can break them off. So, yeah, I kind of like a low receiving yards total after a quiet week.
The model already, Ken, suggested the under for Tank Dell receiving yards. Again, like going to be covered by good corners. He's their one, like, truly good NFL wide receiver on, like, out there, tonight. No offense to Bobby Trees. All right, next, Mixon over 108.5 rush and receiving yards. I like it. I think he gets there rushing alone if the Texans are winning. If they're not, I still think he can catch enough passes to get there. So I have no problem with that. Anybody disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jets are top 10 in pressure rate as well. And CJ Stroud was one of the most pressured quarterbacks last week. So Mixon could be involved in that quick, check down pass game as well if he needs to get rid of the ball. So, yeah, he may be involved in that as well. Combo line could be a good look.
Tank Dell over 4.5 receptions. I like receptions better than receiving yards. Obviously, Tank Dell can get behind anybody. But since he's not playing the sort of, deep threat role opposite Nico, who's also a great deep threat, maybe more likely to catch more passes than he is to catch yardage.
I would agree with that. I also wouldn't pay heavy juice on anything Tank Dell.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Mixon and Hall each 100 rushing yards, 18-1. 18-1 is not bad for that. I mean, this could just be like a kind of a slugfest where both teams run the ball a bunch. I can get down with that, Matt. Stroud, longest completion under 34.5, RJ?
Yeah, I like that. I don't see how they get the deep pass working. I will say with the Mixon thing, before we get a little too optimistic and we're going pie in the sky on all these super high numbers, the more touches you give him, the more likely he gets hurt too. So, I mean, you're thinking, oh, there's no way he can finish with under 106.5 yards. Well, what if he plays half the game, because he's just used so much in the first half.
Said a man who would not wear a costume today.
It's also a big number.
Mechie, 25 plus yards. I mean, I love weed. I think that's his name on his username.
Sure, Brinson.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Hassel asked if I was like a poison groupie or like a poison like you guys don't need to poison this. Yeah, I think I like Mechie, but again, you heard probably give the splits on the snap percentages. I mean, it was Hutchinson and then Bobby Trees. So we're all kind of thinking Mechie's the guy here with a week to prepare. We don't know. He might not see a ton of time, and it might be a couple of looks. I think Mechie's like a decent inverse correlated parlay where you go under receptions over yards and hope he catches like 2, maybe 1 deep ball, and that's it. Mixon 100-yard rush, Mechie 40 receiving is 11-1. That do it for me. Mechie there. Xavier Hutchinson over 2 receptions. Anybody have a thought?
Depends on the price you're getting. I mean, I think the market is the books are telling you with that first touchdown thing, he might be a little more involved than I think a lot of the people in the chat who are banking on Mechie being more involved. So I think if you're going to play any of those Texans receivers, I like what you were saying about Woods, but the value might be with Hutchinson.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just picking your poison here. I mean, everyone's talking about the same, 3 secondhand.
Yeah,
guys.
I mean, yeah, it's unlikely all 3 are going to get there. So pick who you want. Ken
might take 3 all 3 of them under, and 2 of them probably get there. That might be.
That's actually a good call. Kens, speaking of picking people you like, who are you picking to score a touchdown tonight?
Devontae Adams is actually like one of my favorite props in general. I mean, we'd set this around even money. It just feels like it's about time. Everything's kind of coming together. Like he is getting the targets. He has 95 yards through 2 games. He just doesn't have the touchdowns. And you look at when Rodgers and Adams were playing together through 3 seasons, this is hitting 60% of the time. And obviously we're not in the same lineup, but now that Lazard's on the IR, he's looking for his, his veteran guy to have. Maybe now we finally see Adams get into the end zone here. And then Breece Hall, always, if you are, a rushing threat and a receiving threat, the model's typically always going to have value on him. Like Proppy was mentioning, he's just been the better guy in the red zone here. So anytime you can be a dual threat, I think it's always worth an anytime touchdown. And then Tank Dell, I know I don't have his receiving yards, and I don't like him overall in the game. I do think he is one of few guys that will be getting into the red zone, though, for Houston. I mean, he's a guy whose percentage goes up when you talk about receiving touchdowns specifically, and you look at every other guy on the roster right now that we'll see on the field, theirs all go down. So clearly going to be the guy targeted in the red zone here. We'd set this around even money, so getting close to plus 200 is also pretty solid value.
All right. By the way, look who's in the chat right now. Buckets! Love Buckets.
Buckets. Who's throwing an interception tonight? Throw it in there. Buckets is the interception king.
Yes.
Bucket says he's walking to Jeff Stimberg's house for Herreros.
Buckets, beware. They may not be what you expect.
Yeah, you might be getting some Brussels sprouts.
I think that's what he wants.
Yeah. Raw Brussels sprouts don't do it for me, then, man. I got some. I'm cooking some Brussels sprouts tonight.
A. Rogers interception from Buckets. There it is.
All right. We have no goose parlay. We do have a Brinson parlay, though. Yeah. I haven't even they stopped asking me for this. I just keep sending them parlays. I'm going Joe Mixon anytime scorer, Tank Dell over 4.5 receptions, Tank Dell to 50 receiving yards. So we're not going the full over there, just 50. Mixon 100 rushing yards, and Breece Hall over 30.5 receiving yards. RJ, as you noted, I love the Jets tonight.
Yeah, that's a ticket from a guy that loves the Jets tonight.
Yeah, 12-1. It's not a bad price for that. Mixon's finding the end zone through the pass or the run. Okay, we've all had our first TD bet call back before, and BetMGM is giving you a second chance. With BetMGM's Pro Football Second Chance, place any first touchdown score bet, and if your player doesn't score first but scores second, get your entire stake back in cash. No opt-in required. Here's how it works. Place a pregame straight first touchdown score bet in any NFL game. If your player scores the first touchdown of the game, win your wager as normal. If your player scores the second touchdown of the game, you'll get your stake back in cash. It's that simple. Log into BetMGM for details. Now we get to our first touchdown pick. And I believe RJ and Proppy have diamond hands. Is that correct?
Wow.
I was apparently I committed a faux pas by not giving. I know Proppy does, so I'll give it to Proppy first. Proppy.
I couldn't help but think of Diamond Dallas Page with his signature move, the Diamond Cutter. So
yeah,
shout out
absolutely.
to the great Diamond Dallas Page of New Jersey. Great state, New Jersey. But yeah, I'm going to go with a guy RJ alluded to earlier, Mike Williams at plus 3,000. Typically, I go with the chalk here, but I like this spot for Big Mike Williams. NFL trade deadline is approaching. Mike Williams has been in the proverbial doghouse. He's also come up short in some pretty crucial moments for the Jets. So I think this is a spot for him to potentially bounce back, show off a little bit to new prospective employers as well. So give me Mike Williams ahead of the trade deadline, November 5th. He could be donning a new jersey. And I think without Alan Lazard in the lineup, he may run a couple extra routes tonight as well.
All right. I love it. Man, there's a lot to get to here. Kins and RJ, you have the same people.
RJ also needs his diamond, guys.
Yeah.
He does not.
Yeah, RJ, you have a diamond, so you can go first.
I got my diamond in the same game that Proppy did, and somehow his mine has expired and his hasn't. So I don't know.
There's a weird, like Josh is crushing it as a producer. There's a weird disconnect on the producer pass along of Diamond Hands. Like I had to clarify to Harry that Harry was just.
It's Harry's fault. Let's just put it.
I'm not trying to bury Harry.
It's Harry's fault. We'll
it's Halloween.
Put it on blast, and Harry, step your game up, bro. Just kidding.
All right, RJ, you have Diamond Hands. Talk to me about the backup running back for the Jets.
Yeah, I almost went with Mike Williams as well. Because what Proppy said is correct. Trade deadline, feature him. Alan Lazard now on IR. You figured that would help too. Problem is he had no targets, no touch, nothing last week, and all that was true. So I went away with it. I went to Braylon Allen 20-1. I mean, at these odds, we are seeing Braylon Allen valued the same as guys like Mechie and Robert Woods, which I think isn't fair because he has 3 touchdowns this season, 1 fewer than Breece Hall. He had 12 carries last week after seeing 10 combined the previous 3 games. If they're getting him more involved, I think they're going to do it near the goal line. Seems like great value here, getting him 20-1, considering the company he has around that number. So that's why I went with him.
Kens?
Yep, basically all the exact same thinking as RJ, obviously. I feel so smart when I know that RJ has the same thinking as me. Honestly, this is more just a vibes play. I feel like backup running back. I don't think we're going to be off to a good start. I don't think we're going to be scoring on the first drive, the second drive, maybe the third drive. And that's when we start to see Allen start to come into the game and maybe get some action in the red zone here. So at 20-1, seriously though, like RJ was saying, to see him priced with some of those other guys at 20-1 just feels a little disrespectful to this guy.
By the way, look, shout out to Josh. He got the diamond up for RJ on the fly, killing it.
We'd love to see that.
Thank you.
And, look, you say you're on the same thing as RJ. You feel sharp. Do you know what it's like to be on the other side of things? When I'm like, I'm on this, and RJ's like, me too, and I don't like it all of a sudden.
I almost shot down your 10-unit whale play earlier, and I couldn't do it when we were on the stream earlier.
Did you want the Seahawks, or do you like the Seahawks?
Yeah.
Oh, crap. That Rams are rolling in that game. Danny, you have maybe this, like, I'm going to go and say it. You know what? Screw it. I'm hosting this. I can make the rules. That's how these diamonds got here in the first place. If this hits, you get 2 diamonds. No touchdown, Danny?
If this hits, I want a Fabergé egg. This is a Halloween
Brussels
spooky
sprout.
Jets featured in a Halloween game. Ken's alluded to it. Maybe not going to get a touchdown on the first drive, the second drive, the third drive, the fourth drive. Oh, my goodness. Here we are late in the third quarter. We're looking at a 9-6 game. And this 80-1 shot is going to be live. I think we're in for a Thursday night stinker on Halloween, full of all sorts of weird shenanigans. So give me the no touchdown. Brinson, Monday night I had Giants TD, special teams, first TD, and it was the punt return from the Steelers. I was 1 off there. I'm close to one of these crazy ones. So give me no touchdown on Halloween. It's going to get weird.
All right, I'm going to go John Mechie. I honestly kind of want to flip and go Dalton Schultz. I feel like he could probably get that under easy, and Schultz could be the first touchdown scorer. But Mechie at 20-1, again, I go back to my theory of, which never works, Al Michaels, John Mechie. And Kirk Herbstreit's like, I tell you, Al, this guy in college was a heck of a kid, a heck of a player, went through a lot, battled, and here he is in the, scoring this touchdown after going through what he went through as a pro. I kind of feel the vibes. I like John Mechie, first touchdown scorer. Let's recap our bets.
Hold on. I like how the chat is like really just like, damn, the Yankees broke Danny, like giving out field goal props, giving out no touchdowns. They're like, this guy
This is a supervillain's origin story.
Danny expecting a 5-0 final. I'm sorry.
He's like, I have nothing to live for. No touchdowns.
Become an apathetic bettor. No touchdown.
Oh man, it's a shame. I saw. Did you see the meme where it was like died at 27? It was like pictures like it's like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, Yankees rings. That's so good.
No.
I love it. Jets. I'm on the Jets -1.5. Joe Mixon over 82.5 rushing yards. Dalton Schultz over 4.5 receptions. And Joe Mixon anytime touchdown. Danny is on the under 43. Kaimi Fairbairn over 1.5 field goals. RJ's on the Jets money line. Jets and the Jets halftime full time. Tyler Conklin under 42.5 receiving yards. Proppy's got Dalton Schultz under 40.5 receiving yards, and Kins has Tank Dell under 57.5 receiving yards, and Robert Woods over 1.5 receptions. That'll do it for us. Happy Halloween, everybody. Don't leave your Don't leave kids Brussels sprouts. Don't don't get weird candy. Just get good candy. Leave it out for the kids, and make them happy. For Danny, for Kens, for RJ, for Proppy, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you guys later.